I acknowledge my ability to learn, live, and work on the original homelands of the Dakota and Anishinaabe peoples. I honor and acknowledge the Indigenous people forcibly removed from this territory whose connection remains today. I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Cindy Elizabeth, and I am a graduate student in the Higher Education Administration Master's Program. Today, we will examine the College of St. Benedict's transgender student admission policy. To create a more inclusive and gender-affirming institution, it is my recommendation that CSB, and therefore St. John's University, need to amend the transgender student admission policy to reflect our social, colloquial, and programmatic efforts to recognize and accept all those who wish to embrace the Benny experience as their own. A new policy will be recommended to include gender nonconforming, non-binary, agender, and intersex prospective and current students. Before establishing context, I will take a beat to distinguish two foundational terms within this recommendation. Gender fluid and gender nonconforming mean the gender one identifies with fluctuates over time, whereas identifying as agender means you do not identify or lack gender, also known as genderless or non-binary. Lastly, as a queer individual, I choose to reclaim the term queer and use that phrasing in place of LGBTQ+ community. The College of St. Benedict is a Catholic and Benedictine residential liberal arts college committed to the education, growth, and development of undergraduate women. Concerning the college's mission to educate women, gender awareness guides the learning experience at CSB, both in and outside the classroom. Programming attends to the total individual in mind, body, and spirit, and uniquely addresses the lives and aspirations of the women it serves. In coordination with St. John's University, students take classes on both campuses and share one common curriculum. Classes are co-ed and graduation requirements are the same for both institutions. Residential housing and commencement ceremonies, however, remain separate. The College of St. Benedict is deeply rooted in its identity as a residential arts college for women. However, as stated on its website, in light of the contemporary social, political, and economic landscape, a new admission policy was created to remain faithful to their mission and values while addressing the evolution of understanding for students and their gender identities. The transgender student admission policy in its current form reads as, the College of St. Benedict will consider for undergraduate admission those applicants who consistently live and identify as women, regardless of the gender assigned to them at birth. But you might be asking yourself, what does it mean to consistently live and identify as a woman? Our admission teams allow students to self-identify, but it must be within the limitations of binary language, woman or man. Based on this language, those assigned female at birth who are cisgender and transgender women, regardless of when or if they transition, are eligible for admission. Additionally, at the men's college, applicants assigned male at birth who now identify as women are not eligible for undergrad admission at SJU, but they can be considered for enrollment at the College of St. Benedict. But where does that leave prospective and enrolled students who identify outside the binary as neither man nor woman, or as both? The transgender student admission policy does not affect students who transition while enrolled at the CSB campus, whether that be in expression, identity, or medically. Because of this, students who identify as non-binary, genderqueer, or agender, despite being assigned female or male at birth or presenting as feminine or masculine, are specifically excluded from an educational experience at St. Ben's. Additionally, Indigenous folks who identify as two-spirited or intersex individuals are not explicitly eligible for admissions either. Moreover, enrolled students who transition from the female identity and away from womanhood feel invalidated and erased within the student experience. The policy does not adequately address the ever-evolving definition of gender that is lived out on our campuses and within our bigger community. Please acknowledge that moving forward, unless otherwise stated, I am including both CSB enrolled and SJU enrolled students when I'm genuinely referring to students. Because we are in the midst of stronger integration, my visioning for the policy recommendation was drafted for all students regardless of their primary affiliation. An effort to update our languages and policies regarding gender has already been advocated both at the student and the faculty staff level. In 2020, in response to the murder of Breonna Taylor, the St. Ben's and St. John's Senates reconvened with students and faculty to brainstorm ideas, generate solutions, and identify specific issues in our campus community known as the Student Senate's Call to Action. In this session, they identified different aspects of the CSB and SJA community that they felt needed work: racial oppression, bias-related incidents, and gender discrimination. Secondly, the CSB SJU President's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice Coordinating Council, headed by the Director of Multicultural Student Services, comprises of faculty across disciplines, support staff, and the cultural affairs representatives from each campus's student senate. Their spring 2020 update identified addressing issues of gender as a key area for enhancing inclusion at CSB and SJU. This policy recommendation's primary target is gender diverse and queer prospective students in addition to their caregivers or guardians. However, this policy recommendation will institutionally change how the community talks about gender, advance our gender studies department and the opportunities within, and re-engage our alumni base who might have transitioned away from consistently living and identifying as women. Students, faculty, and staff, and community-involved monastic members embrace gender diversity and inclusivity, but there's a disconnect within the admissions policy that we must address. Currently, some of the initiatives and commitments we have been able to do to serve those outside the binary and educate the community include 2 semesters of cultural and social difference requirement within the academic curriculum, a recently established preferred name change form for educational platforms and campus directories, a queer-centered intentional living community with private bathrooms, and multiple affinity organizations rooted in the intersection of gender, leadership, and access. Additionally, courses offered in both semesters include Gender 101, Sex and Gender, Indigenous and LGBTQ+ allyship, and feminist theology. Recognizing that CSB is not a historically single-gender college, but presently a women's college, we must acknowledge that women have not fully achieved equity in women's colleges still have value. Therefore, the new admission policy should include all of those who have been disenfranchised or marginalized in society and historically excluded from educational institutions. As Catholic Benedictine institutions, we are called to actively welcome gender diverse students. The following recommendations will engage a diverse applicant pool, increase a sense of belonging amongst our current queer students, and provide explicit support and compassion for the students who make up the St. Ben's and St. John's legacy. The new admission policy recommendation is intended for the undergraduate colleges only. The graduate theology and nursing programs currently have no eligibility requirements tied to a student's gender. This policy makes no changes to the current admissions criteria for either institution. My recommendation for the transgender student admission policy will transform into one universally used gender inclusivity admission policy. The policy, including social context, will read as follows. Founded and sponsored by the Sisters of the Order of St. Benedict, the College of St. Benedict is unwavering in its commitment to respecting the dignity of all persons and to welcoming students, faculty, staff, and guests who find inspiration and value in these commitments. CSB is dedicated to maintaining safe and affirming environments for all students to pursue their educational goals free of inequity, prejudice, and discrimination. We are deeply committed to recognizing all students who wish to pursue an education and become a Benny. The College of St. Benedict, a traditional college for women with a gender diverse student body, will consider for undergraduate admission those applicants who have been historically excluded from education on the basis of gender. We acknowledge that institutional sexism and structural inequality have and continue to disenfranchise women and those outside the gender binary. We affirm students' rights to self-identify throughout the admission process. With respect to our evolving understanding of gender identity, and our mission, tradition, and values as a college for women, the College of St. Benedict will accept undergraduate applications from those who do not, while in attendance or at the time of application, identify as male. Applicants assigned female at birth who now identify as male and all other male applicants are not eligible for admission at CSB, but can be considered for enrollment at St. John's University. It is stated in our profile searches for a senior diversity officer and chief operating officer that recognition of individual worth without regard for wealth or social standing is explicit in the Rule of Benedict. The College of St. Benedict and St. John's University seeks to amplify an authentically Christian concern for human rights and to make education broadly available to students on the sole criteria of the ability to benefit from the enrollment in our colleges. If we as an institution truly believe that everyone should be able to benefit from enrollment at our colleges, this policy will assist in doing the work of hospitality and respect of human dignity before a student even arrives. To affirm both current, prospective, and graduated students, I would further recommend drafting a statement of care affirming their commitment to celebrating and recognizing students' rights to self-identification and human dignity. The statement presented I have drafted and is currently under review with the CSB and SJU presidential leadership team to be implemented come next academic school year. This is only one action. There needs to be significant time, resources, and planning to address the logistics such as housing, athletics, health and support services, and other vital aspects of campus life to ensure that students are holistically developed, included, and cared for. The Call to St. Benedict, as a refuge from patriarchal structures, has a remarkable opportunity to be a leading voice in creating a more gender fluid and gender affirming experiences for undergraduate students. We are already doing the work. Now it is time to put pen to paper and update our policies to mirror the values that we are already living out. Thank you.